Is our secret safe tonight? And are we out of sight? Or will our world come tumbling down? Will they find our hiding place? Is this our last embrace? Or will the world start caving in? Could be wrong, but it should have been right. It could be wrong, let our hearts ignite. It could be wrong, are we digging a hole? It could be wrong, this is out of control. It could be wrong.
Alrighty, hello everybody. It's the Fakeologist Show. It's Thursday, April the 3rd, 2025. And actually, I thought this was the other Muse song, the big hit, the one with 292 million views. That is Uprising. So I think we'll play Uprising at the end. But this one has 133 million. I like the 33 in there. And it's called Resistance by Muse, as I can't remember if I said. And this is a song requested, of course, if you're just joining us, by our special guest tonight, the Michigan Muckraker, all the way from Michigan, our neighbor to the west of Ontario, where I live. Welcome to Michelle, the Michigan Muckraker. Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. You're so very polite. Wonderful to have you here. We also have our regular Thursday co-host, Frank the Salt Guy from Geelong, Corporation of Victoria, Corporation of Australia.
Ni hao.
And yes, so I came across Michigan Muckraker probably because I was on YouTube, as I am many times now, as I do my investing seminars from all the wonderful content creators there. And I believe I typed in Agenda 2050, or excuse me, America 2050, because it does come up quite a bit on my show. And I figured, and then this lovely lass from Michigan came on. So I clicked on her, and lo and behold, I really, really enjoyed her creations. And I put a couple of her videos on FAK1051, where I like to put some of my favorite videos, because God knows what's going to happen with YouTube in the future. And then I thought, well, why don't I invite her on the show and get her on here and talk about America 2050 and mega regions and all that kind of stuff. And I reached out, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but I get a response, and she responded right away. So we're so excited to have her on. So Michelle, tell us anything and everything to the audience that you want by way of introduction.
Yeah, so I actually started my YouTube channel in 2023 in order to collect all the information that I could about Goshen, the EV battery plant that was supposed to be here just north of me on the river that I live on. And come to find out, that battery plant was part of a plan, a central plan, that didn't require any conversation from the region, but it was going to bring about regional change. And so that was talked about quite a lot when the Project Elephant was rolled out. This is going to bring regional change. You guys are going to love it. Well, we didn't love it. We don't want regional change. And so it made me dig into exactly what's going on, who made these plans, and why. And I stumbled across America 2050, which, of course, is a part of UN Agenda 21, and the high speed rail system's connected. And of course, it's one big, gigantic spider web. But America 2050 was picked up by the Department of Transportation. So it is a plan that has come into fruition. It's just not one that you hear about. So I think that's the big topic that you wanted to discuss today, right? Was America 2050?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Because I actually think, and I explained this to my father today, I think the tariffs are actually part of the plan. I really think this is, and I don't think Trump is on our side. I think he's another globalist in wolf's clothing. Well, how can you not be? They're the ones that install presidents and install leaders all over the world. So if you look at what's going on right this very day, we can easily tie it into America 2050. And the fact is, there's so few people anywhere talking about it. Either we are very prescient, or we are overly observant, or we're just smarter than the average person, which I doubt for the most part. But it's very bizarre that really just these small researchers scattered all around the land have picked up the torch and started talking about it. And coincidentally, they're mainly women. I mean, some of my favorite people to talk about Agenda 21 were Rosa Corey, who apparently is no longer with us. We have Cindy Niles over where Frank lives in the Corporation of Victoria in Australia. And we have Juliana Romanello, who is in Tulsa. And of course, we had the late Nikki Rapana, who was from Seattle and then moved up to Anchorage, Alaska. And then her daughter also followed in her footsteps. And I'm just trying to remember her name right now. I'm gapping. Frank, do you remember her name? I know Brian's going to call in about 30 seconds and chastise me for not remembering her name right now. But she came, Nikki Rapana, and
Nikki Rapana, yeah,
and her daughter. I can't remember right now. But anyway, so isn't that strange that we have another woman who is picking up the Agenda 21, Agenda America 2050 torch and exposing it by way of just not wanting a battery plant in her area of Michigan?
Yeah, I think that perhaps it's something to do with the insidious nature of the plan. It's something my husband and I talk about often, is that women seem to be more like macro level and like big picture,
Okay.
and men more maybe detailed oriented. Now, obviously, there are outliers, and we're just talking averages here.
Sure.
But overall, I think that the way that this works is harder for the masculine mind to actually identify this target, right? Because they're using the art of war. They're never even going to fire a shot.
Oh, yeah.
They've gotten into our building code, and they've gotten into like basically the DNA of America, and so it's much harder to see. And but then there's detail oriented, of course. You need to get into these um, all these documents that the governments are putting out there. So that requires a lot of time and detail. So, you know, the women are definitely fighting, but then men have been beaten down by societal bull crap anyway. So it's hard for men to actually use their voice because of the way things are set up, which is by design, right? Men fighting evil, good men fighting evil. The evil doesn't want that. So,
They don't want strong men. Sorry,
right.
her name is Nordica. It just occurred to me while you were talking. So Nordica Rapana.
That's such a
Nordica,
pretty name.
actually Nordica Friedrich. I think it's her father's surname. Okay, let me just play this video by PTL Media, who is a great content creator. He contributes to my show quite a bit, and he did the Lynn Ertel, my Tuesday regular guest, theme song. So I'm going to play this really good compilation about Agenda 21. I sent it to you earlier, Michelle. Did you get a chance to see it?
Yes, it is a good summary in a small amount of time.
Okay, we're gonna play it then. So here we go. Let me just turn on the sound, of course, because I muted the site. Now I'll unmute it. Here we go. And
What is Agenda 21?
At its core, Agenda 21 is about control, At its core, Agenda 21 is about control, Control of the land, natural resources, and entire populations. When you boil it down, there are 9 basic tenets of Agenda 21, Agenda 21, Agenda 21. Move citizens off private land and into urban housing. Create vast wilderness spaces inhabited by large carnivores. Eliminate cars and create walkable cities. Support chosen private businesses with public funds for sustainable development. Make policy decisions that favor the greater good over individuals. Drastically reduce the use of power, water, and anything else that creates carbon pollution. Use bureaucracies to make sweeping decisions outside of democratic processes. Increase taxes, fees, and regulations. And finally, implement policies meant to incentivize a reduced population.
We do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services. We could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
Hello, I'm Severin Suzuki speaking for ECHO, the Environmental Children's Organization. We're a group of 12 and 13-year-olds.
At its core, Agenda 21 is about control. Agenda 21, Agenda 21. At its core, Agenda 21 is about control. Agenda 21, Agenda 21. At its core, Agenda 21 is about control. Agenda 21, Agenda 21. At its core, Agenda 21 is about control. Agenda 21, Agenda 21. And finally, implement policies meant to incentivize a reduced population. Agenda 21.
anyway, thank you, Greta Thunberg. That's Agenda 21 by PTL Media. Very talented. He takes something that's extremely boring and dry and really jazzes it up with his music soundtrack. I thought that was fantastic. What say you, Michelle?
Absolutely, yes. I agree that this stuff can be dry, and so that was a very good presentation. I want to say too that Brian reached out to me, and I really appreciate all the information that he sent my way. I have a lot of homework to do.
Yeah, well, his main thrust, and he crowbars it into every show I do almost, regardless of what guest it is. His main thrust is communitarianism, and I'm sure he'll call in later. But are you familiar with the term? I know you brought it up on some of your presentations, but what do you know about it, and should we be afraid of it?
So the bottom line is communitarianism is about what comes first, the individual or the community. And so the Agenda 21, and I asked Grok as well, it is a communitarian agenda, but it's responsive communitarianism, which is different than something like what I thought authoritarian communitarianism was what I thought this plan was. But unfortunately, the responsive portion just means that it's fluid, right? So it depends on what they want, whether the individual comes first or the community comes first. So then the question becomes, well, who gets to decide? And that's always the question, right? Because these communitarian plans, well, individuals are still deciding them. So what makes those individuals special or anointed in order to tell everybody else how to live? So
But just some
communitarianism is
people are
definitely
more equal than others, that's all.
right, exactly. Exactly. So
They're
I definitely agree.
anointed and appointed.
Right. And I agree with you, by the way, on Trump. It's so refreshing to actually find somebody else that understands that he is just implementing. He's a sheepdog as well. He's just implementing it from another perspective, one that's necessary. You know, deregulating certain things, you're destroying certain areas to rebuild in others.
Right.
So he's absolutely necessary for the New World Order plans.
Yeah. Well, even if he wanted to have his own kind of agenda, unfortunately, the banking system will only allow you to do what they need to be done. So, may I don't doubt a lot of politicians go into politics completely naive and completely interested in representing and changing the system, but I think the system always breaks them down into what they need. So, I don't really have any illusions about anyone that gets in, whether I like them or not, whether they're a good disruptor or a bad disruptor, because I think the system always takes them and crushes them and repackages them into what they need. So for even if Trump has half a brain cell, which is always questionable,
Hmm.
uh, they'll take what he might think. He might think he's doing a good thing, but it's going to backfire in the way he maybe wants to work, and then they'll use it to, I would say, unify the Great Lakes mega region, which is part of America 2050, and everyone will demand no tariffs and no border and just complete integration. I think that's going to be the boomerang or the whipsaw effect of this. So what say you? Because America 2050, you talked about it in one of your videos that I put up here. So I'll just show the FAKOTube screen here. FAKOTube is our video platform. We host it and we pay for it, of course. And you, in one of your videos here, you have two videos I put up on America 2050. Uh, I think this one over here is the first one, U.S. Mega Regions 2050 Explained, and Mega Regions Exposed 2025 edition. And one of them you're talking here, there's the picture of the Great Lakes Mega Region, which will go from Chicagoland all the way to Torontoland. So do you want to talk a bit about that? And what do you think of my theory that this whole tariff thing is part of it? It doesn't seem like it right now, but I think that might be the end result.
Well, I actually did some research into the United States, Canada, Mexico deal that Trump initiated in 2018 with
Yeah, called
NAFTA 2.0.
called Kuzma, I think. Kuzma or
Well,
Kumsa, Canada, United States, Mexico, something like that.
maybe because you're in Canada, but here the United States comes first in our
Oh,
literature.
oh, okay. All right, that's probably
So,
true. Yeah.
which is interesting. That's very interesting. But so that NAFTA 2.0 definitely was interesting because it had a clause within it that says we need to renegotiate this in 6 years, which just so happened to be exactly when Trump came back into office. So
Yeah.
I find that interesting. So
Mhm.
now he's supposed to renegotiate for the next year, and that's what this whole, make Canada a 51st state talk is about. But really, it's the North American Union rebranded, right? But
Mhm.
they're calling it the Greater American Empire and some of the alt-right spheres. But I definitely think tariffs have a lot to do with putting pressure on that because the Great Lakes mega region can't come to fruition easily if there's two different sets of laws from two different countries, right?
That's right.
So from going from Chicago to Detroit will be relatively easy, even though it's different states. But
Mhm.
getting from Detroit to Toronto and Montreal, I think, to connect to New York, they're going to need a different system. So it definitely would benefit the New World Order if we were just a region, or rather a union, North American Union, or whatever they want to call it. So yes, I definitely think tariffs are going to put pressure on that.
I'm just bringing up a picture of the mega regions here. The one I want is behind a paywall, so I'll have to follow. Maybe this one. No, this is the one behind the damn paywall. Boy,
Well,
these guys are. Oh, it's okay. I think I can find another version of this somewhere else. Let's see here. Maybe this one. Okay,
if you
Pinterest.
want, I shared my screen. It's totally up to you.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll do. Well, we'll take any presentation you got here. Okay, here we go. There it is, right there.
So this is the America 2050 plan that from the RPA, the Regional
Planet.
Planning Association. Yes.
Yeah.
Now they still are working with mega regions, but in 2015, when the United States signed the 2015 United Nations Agenda 2030 deal, that actually, I think it's like a rebrand. They switched it up and they gave it to the University of Texas. So they're the ones from 2016 to now that have really put plans into place um, for the Department of Transportation. So there's actually 13 mega regions in the new plan that was updated in 2022, but this one is 10.
Okay.
But you get a general idea. You have the Great Lakes mega region will be the largest.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you see you're up here.
That's
So,
where I live.
yep, we'll be connected here. Uh, then down here, somewhere in here is East Palestine, Ohio, which I think is interesting as well because I do think that they use different methods to clear us out of different areas in
Yes,
order to implement these plans. So,
absolutely.
so yeah, Great Lakes mega regions, one of the larger, and then of course, let's see, I think
Do you
uh,
think we'll be the first one because we're the largest one?
no, Cascadia is actually well ahead of schedule. In fact, I think just this year there was an update
Oh,
about
interesting. That's where Brian and Jenna live.
yes, yep.
Mhm.
This one is going to be one of the first.
Okay.
And then, of course, Southern California, the high-speed rail system going to Las Vegas right here.
Mhm.
That one is, you know, on the way. It's
Is
being
that one
worked on.
actually, um, being constructed? Because 'Cause we've heard about high-speed rail in Southern California for the last 30 years. Is there actually something being built?
There's like a mile or two.
Oh, okay, they actually have done something.
They've
Okay.
done something. Not much, but something.
And that is interesting because Northern California does not identify with Southern California. They've always wanted to separate. So it's
Yep.
interesting they were given their own region. Is there any way this is a good thing? Because the 2 areas, just particularly in California, never got along anyway. It's such a big state, it easily could be 3 states.
Well, in a lot of ways, it could be a great thing. Obviously, I'm not against high-speed rail
Mhm.
in particular, but the problem is that they want to limit our freedom of movement elsewhere.
Okay,
So they want to replace cars with high-speed rails instead of just supplement.
okay.
And so, you're seeing it now. New York has done it. But you always hear about how congested, excuse me, New
Yeah,
York is. But it's because they've brought all their highways and all their lanes from 3 to 2 or 2 to 1 for bike lanes and so on. So they're making it a pain point, and then they're pointing out that it's a pain point in order to justify switching to public transport.
yeah.
So
Now
again,
is there anything wrong with that? I live in Toronto, we're just as congested as New York City, and, at this point, I think most people in Toronto are, uh well, we have the bike lanes, we have a premier. I think you're close enough to Canada to know what a premier is, so I won't, talk down to you on that. But he's overriding the city and removing some of the the bike lanes in downtown Toronto because they coincidentally are on his way to work and slow his limousine down. He's actually supposedly gonna rip them out this month actually in a number of areas. So
that's very interesting.
yeah, well, he's sort of he rides a populist wave, and it's right down the middle. Canadians always drive in the middle lane. We never are on the left or the right. We just right down the middle. Even you can even see it on our highways. It's actually absolutely crazy. But the point is, though, that it's happening in Toronto. It's happening in all C40 cities. Did you ever look into C40 cities?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
What'd you find out?
Well, just that basically what you're saying, there's more cameras, less lanes for vehicles. But the whole push is towards that 15-minute city where you have autonomous vehicles. No one will be able to drive in their utopian vision, which is, again, by 2050 is when they want this utopian vision in. 2030 is a milestone, but 2050 is when they want it actually all in place. And I do find it interesting it's 13 mega regions, like 13 districts in the Hunger Games.
How many FEMA regions are there? Are there 13 in the United States? I think there's 10 FEMA regions, if I'm not incorrect.
I think that you're right on that.
Yeah.
But perhaps it could be updated to coincide with mega regions
Yeah.
eventually, because again, it is such a prevalent talking point in our actual plans. So a national plan, which hasn't been done since 60s or maybe even FDR, to have a
Perhaps.
national transportation plan at least.
Now, does this also assume that Americans want to go between mega regions? They don't want to just drive anymore? Because one thing I'm finding is with the Gen Ys, which is after millennials, or sorry, the Gen Zs. Millennials are Gen Y. The 20-year-olds are Gen Z, and then we started up again with, I think, Generation Alpha and Beta. But do the Gen Zs even want to drive? Are they not being sort of coerced or agitated out of the idea that driving equals freedom?
Yeah, you're right. They don't even you don't know what you've lost if
Mhm,
they don't even know what they're losing. My nephew had gotten his driving privileges recently,
mhm.
and there's curfews and there's already like barriers to entry into driving that weren't there when I was
Right.
getting my driver's license.
Yes.
And so, like, me explaining that to him, he was, like, surprised, and then when I explained to him that, it's basically eroding your freedom, the government is becoming like a nanny state, has to know everything when you're driving, when you get home, can tell you when you can and cannot drive all the way to 18, 21. Keeps getting pushed later and later too,
But
and
that's to save lives, we're told. Because 16-year-olds, they pile into a car, they get drunk, and they crash. And we have these 5, 6 teenagers dying. It's such a waste. So is it not for their protection?
they like to dress it up that way, but
Mhm.
honestly, they don't care at all about life. In fact, the whole movement, environmental movement at its core, is anti-life. So, unfortunately, they're lying. They will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on, let's say, an airman's training, and will easily, send them over and end their lives in whatever manner they want, as long as it pushes whatever agenda they want. So the individual lives don't matter. The vision matters. The plan matters, and they've shown it in many many ways. So
Let
I
me
wish that it was about saving lives.
let me play your clip from one of your shows. I often clip videos or areas of videos that I like, and I'm usually mobile, so it comes across as this little small screen here. So but it's the audio that's worth listening to, and this is from one of your presentations on mega regions. I'll just play it where you're talking about carbon and what Bill Gates was saying, and that was in the video that we just watched about.
In a worldwide context, the term megaregion is often used to reflect large areas, both in terms of population size and area. UN Habitat identifies.
By the way, you don't talk that fast. I just play my stuff at 1.2 on my phone, so
Yeah, no problem.
that's not how you normally talk.
Megaregions is one of the three types of new urban configurations, along with urban corridors and city regions. Now, you have urban corridors and then you have wildlife corridors. As of right now, they're not saying that the wildlife corridors are
going to be people free, but that's the ultimate goal. Because the whole problem with this environmental movement is that, again, it's a war on ourselves. It's very anti-human to the core. And I've said it several times, I will continue to say it, a war on carbon is a war on life itself. So what we're seeing here is that these people think that we're a bunch of parasites basically on Earth, and we're using up all of their resources, and so they want to manage them properly, and they think they're the ones that can do it, and they're going to do it through data and digital ID.
Yeah, and that goes to what Bill Gates was saying. We got to get the carbon down, and he was really talking about humans. Really, that's, if you read between the lines, it was pretty clear to me.
Yes. Yep. I mean, the UN Agenda 21 is inventory and control of every resource on this plane of existence. And that is because they believe in the limits to growth, that there's only so many resources on this earth, and that we're not managing them correctly. And so if they don't do something, that then all of humanity is going to perish because we're going to run out of resources. Now that's assuming a lot, and that's my fundamental problem with it. You're making the assumption that we're going to continue going a certain way just because it's been this way for 20, 40 years. That's one assumption. And then you assume that resources are finite when we've never run out of oil. Every time we think we might get close, we find new pockets. And so it's based on false assumptions. And so then all the models that they've created are based on these false assumptions. So you get garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, my guest Frank, he's big on models. Right, Frank? Do you want to speak to that a bit?
Well, I think I should let you know, Michelle, that I consider the Bible the accurate description of what our predicament is. And so essentially I've discarded every bit of science that I was taught as a child. So I don't think we live on a spinning ball.
Good.
And I don't I don't I don't believe in evolution. I don't think there's anything other than what we're told in the Bible, really. And so all of this, every one of these paradigms are false. And so the premise of all of it is just pure nonsense. So yeah,
It's just an excuse. That the whole thing with carbon is just an excuse in order to control us, and even worse than that, as you say, to manipulate maybe even the code, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, as I said, because I think we are being deceived by Satan, and because, as far as I can tell, the Bible is correct in its description of the world. I think that we do have an enemy. It's a deceiver, and what that deceiver is trying to do is to draw us away from understanding where we live and who we are. That we're a spirit inhabiting a body, and that because he's broken his covenant with God, he's really trying to drag us down with him.
I agree.
Okay, I just want to point out here that on FAK1051, I have categories. Every video I put up, I usually categorize, and one of them is Agenda 21. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, America 2050. It's all part of the next 100-year plan. And you'll see many videos here that are sorted as such, so you can easily find this topic on here. Now, one of the videos I highlighted way back in the day was Rosa Corey. Did you follow Rosa Corey at all? This woman here on the very bottom?
Oh yes, and that is something I've discovered her all the way back in like 2013. But I didn't act on the information, like I just stored it for possible future use, and it wasn't until 10 years later in 2023 when I realized that everything she was talking about is right here in my backyard. And again, I mean, 3,000 people in this tiny little township. We're talking about rural Michigan, and it was captured. And they were talking about, regional change and everything else. So if it can happen there, it's happening everywhere. It's basically in the bloodstream of America. And Rosa Corey's research led me down some rabbit holes. She's definitely not where I would stop doing research, but her book, Behind a Green Mask, UN Agenda 21, was very enlightening for me and helped me understand what was going on and was the first lead to communitarianism. So I know that there's controversy around her, that perhaps she took others' information and ran with it. You know, she stole information. I don't know.
Well, Nikki Rapana, maybe. That's the accusation. And maybe she just didn't attribute it properly, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and here's my thing is I totally understand wanting to get credit when you do good work, but at the end of the day, what matters most is that the information gets out to people and that people realize what's going on so they can say no. 'Cause, I mean, in the end, we that's all we did with Goshen. Enough of us said no loud enough, and we just found out that they have pulled their permits. This week we found out. So it looks like we have won, and we did not have to do anything drastic except for just say no really loud. So and that requires being informed. And so that's why I do what I do, and I really appreciate you and what you do
Mhm.
because information is key eh, for us to just say no.
Now,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that what you're saying is a very important part of this is that people do feel helpless. But my personal experience is that uh, writing the letters required to, to find out where people have got their what would you call it, their mandate to do various things. It turns out that it is a bit of a house of cards, and that it can be punctured with doing the sort of things that you're talking about.
Yes, it requires apathy and ignorance. And so if we can combat those things, then it is exactly that. Lies are easily destroyed if you just shed some light on them. And
Hmm.
so I definitely, as hard as it's been lately with getting the message out, because obviously the internet's getting smaller and smaller, I still think it's important. And, you know, just even if one person gets the information, then it could change things.
Now, getting
Yes.
getting getting back to your original story where you were against a battery plant in Michigan, was there any specific reason that you were against it? Because Michigan, of course, is the car state. That's how it really got its economic vitality, and obviously, since the '50s, Michigan has been in decline as being part of the Rust Belt. Are you against, in principle, the idea of battery-operated cars? Is there another agenda, or what was your angle on that?
So first it was the fact that nobody asked.
Mhm.
It was just, "Hey, we're gonna do this, and we don't really care what you say, even though it's going to bring change to your area." It was all behind NDAs. It was sprung on us in 2022. The
Mhm.
only reason we found out is because they were trying to get a tax break, and so they had to get a vote with the local governments. And so that's the only reason it was even revealed at that time. And so it was well along the way already, but no plans were shown. And you know, I think that it's important if you want to claim to be a democracy, even though we're a republic. I think it's important that you get the people's the pulse of the people. What do they want in that area instead of just forcing your vision upon them? So that was first, and then of course, the EV battery plants uh, have a lot of chemicals, and I live on the river that that this plant was going to be on, which is the second largest river in Michigan, Muskegon River. And so I was against that for environmental reasons. Now, later on, it became more and more apparent that the Chinese aspect of it is something to consider, um, of course. But there is a push for us to, you know, there's a push for the on the right for people to be against China just because it's against China. and I don't agree with that. So it's not that it was necessarily a Chinese company, but I think that we should do like a greenhouse there or something that's fits the area. It's a recreational area. It's not meant for factories, and that's another thing. They said there'd be 1,200 jobs by 2032, and I know that automation is the name of the game, and that there's not going to be 1,200 jobs by 2032 in that facility. It's going to be all automated, especially since it's a Chinese company. They're well advanced over other companies with automation. So there were several reasons why I did not want it, but EVs are being pushed via like a command economy rather than being a free market economy. Now, I'm for innovation, and if it was a free market economy and battery EVs came online, I would buy, or I would not buy, I'm sorry. I would be all for the free market allowing that product to exist, of course. I don't like that it's being pushed on us with a carrot and a stick because they want to control us, and they can do that much easier if it's electric vehicles, which can be remotely controlled, versus gas-powered vehicles, which can't.
Okay, that explains. Okay, good. Yeah, I agree. It's so really you're not fundamentally against it. You just didn't like, and that's why you saw it being a regional thing. Regional in the sense, what's greater than your county, the state, I guess. So is it the state government you're saying is the regional force behind the plant?
Um, Definitely our state government has sold out to the World Economic Forum. We had the first headquarters in Detroit for the World Economic Forum. So that's definitely a part of it, but when they started talking, it's their verbiage, right? So they started talking about regional change, and that, to me, indicated UN Agenda 2030 or Agenda 21 because of Rosa Corey and her research and her linking those things.
Okay, understood. Okay, so we also have another woman. I'll just throw these names out there. Another person that is really well researched, and this was introduced by Brian and Jenna to me. This person is Cindy Niles. She is over there in Australia. Have you heard of her?
No, not until Brian actually was talking about her. So it's one of those individuals that I need to research more. But if you have a video, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've got quite a few. I grabbed them off Facebook. I'm not going to play them now because they're all pretty long. But she really understands the whole plan. She's been talking about this for a long time. We have a fellow Canadian up here named Mark Friesen. I've interviewed him, and he talks a lot about Agenda 21. And actually, here's a really good one. Let me just play this one. I played this a few times. It's an $8 trillion scam, the carbon tax. Now, we just recently, our crime sinister rescinded or lowered the carbon tax down to zero. He didn't eliminate it, he just lowered it. So I'll play this, but hold on. We got a fellow Michigander on the line here. So
Hold time,
we'll
14 seconds.
we'll take the call. Hello, where are you calling from and what's your name?
My name is John the Beggar, and I'm calling you from the south shore of the St. Lawrence Seaway.
John the Beggar, say hi to fellow Michigander.
Hello, fellow Michigander, the Michigan Muckraker, and that's Frank the Salt guy on too, isn't it?
Yeah, Frank's here. It's Michigan Muckraker, and
Muckraker.
I'll just bring this up on the Fakeologist blog here. Let me just.
How are you, JTB?
Well, you got
doing pretty good.
You got initials. Now I asked my wife, who's really smart. I said, "Do you know what a muckraker is?" And she did not. So I'll tell you what it is, courtesy of the Perplexity bot. A muckraker is a term used to describe journalists, writers, or activists who investigate and expose corruption, misconduct, or social injustices, particularly in politics and business. The term gained prominence during the progressive era in the United States from the 1890s to the 1920s, when reform-minded journalists published exposés on issues like corporate monopolies, unsafe working conditions, and political corruption. And the origin of the word traces back to the literal muck rake, a tool used for gathering muck or filth, first recorded in the 14th century. Figuratively, muckraker was initially used in the early 1600s to describe someone overly focused on trivial or sordid matters. And it goes on. Michelle, did you know that that was the etymology of your name? I'm guessing you did.
Yes, yes, I did. I think it's funny the very end there. But one thing that those muckrakers did that I don't agree with is that they pointed out the corruption, and then instead of allowing the private businesses to fix the problem, they ran to the government in order to get legislation passed, and that's never the answer. Making government bigger always backfires, and it did actually with the whole meat fiasco with the jungle, but I won't get into all that. But yes, I'm not for government interference. I think that pointing out the problems is good, but I think we, the people, need to actually solve the problems and not ask daddy government to.
All
How
right.
would you do that? Would you do that through litigation, like libertarians say to do?
Oh, libertarians. I don't think so. I think that the system itself is broken. And the only thing I can say from my own experience is by saying no to this Goshen, we did fire all of the service, the local government, the township board. There we go. Those are the words I was looking for. We fired them. The Green Charter Township Board was all taken out, and we put in people that were against Goshen. But then the Republican Party attached themselves to the movement, which was grassroots, and so now it looks like a Republican movement. So I don't think that that our government can be fixed from within, unfortunately.
But what do you do if someone starts polluting terrible things? If you have no government to stop them, do you go to the courts to sue them for damages?
It used to be that way, but now the courts are captured too. So the problem is that all the systems that we once held dear and were supposed to be checks and balances, all of them have been captured. So now what do we do?
Okay, that was just my question on that. One comment I wanted to make was any foreign business or plant in your corporation, in your country or county or whatever, is actually a form of globalization in and of itself. Nobody should be allowed, foreigners should be allowed to own anything in your country. And that doesn't mean an immigrant who lawfully immigrates, takes his 7 years to get his naturalization, can't own anything. They should be able to. But really, once you start letting foreign corporations and entities into your country, you're a bought dog, and it's globalism.
I completely agree with you. And one of my big problems with this whole thing with Goshen too, it wasn't that we just allowed them to purchase the land. It was that we gave them $750 million to bribe them to buy our land. $750 million of Michigan taxpayer dollars. That's so wrong.
Yeah, that could be used on the roads. I don't know how the roads are where you live.
Oh, bad.
I live in the Metro Detroit area, and when the snows came, I had to go out into the street because nobody cleaned their sidewalks off for my wheelchair, and the streets were terrible in some spots. Of course, some spots the streets are better and the sidewalks are worse. It's just the third world where I live.
Well, when in Detroit, when you go into a pothole, you don't come back out.
That's true. You may not come back out.
Yeah, you may not come back out.
Very much a possibility. And I was curious, fakeologist, has Mark the Carney took over your country yet?
Well, yeah, he is our crime sinister right now.
Oh, Mark the Carney is.
Oh yeah. He is the prime minister, and he's called an election, so we have to wait till April 28th to see if Canadians are going to fall for the liberal dance again, and there's a good chance they will, because even though he's the architect of our carbon tax, he did a 180 and just dropped it down to zero. A very cynical move, obviously, to lower the price of gas by a considerable amount. Now I think we're equal to New York State for the price of gas, which is amazing. But
Okay.
it was just a little candy to throw out, and
But he's not
probably
even a Canadian, is he?
No, he was born here, yeah, but he did a stint.
Oh, he was born there.
He did a
Okay.
stint in the Crown. He works for the Crown because we
Oh,
are.
yeah, he worked over there. I know he was the Bank of England.
Yeah, and the Bank of Canada. But these guys work for the Crown, CROWNE, in the city of London. So this is who runs the world. In case anyone was
Yes. Well,
confused
that's
about
why I
that.
refer to him as Mark the Carney.
Yeah.
He's a con man.
Well, he could
Okay.
be, but he. The only reason I think he's going to win, number one, he gave everyone a really big bone to chew on, lowering the gas tax or carbon tax to zero. But he looks like an adult compared to the guy before him who looked like a kid. So it's almost like we want the grown-ups to run the place for a little while because the children ran wild and just made a big mess. And that's I think there's a psychological thing there.
Oh yeah, they set the bar so low.
Yeah.
They definitely plan that. What else was I going to
As much as they
mention?
can. Yeah, as much as they can plan it, but they play both sides, so they're ready for anything in any direction. So I think
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, because you look at the agriculture, the chemical industry runs agriculture, but you do have an organics movement, and you even have an organics movement called regenerative organics, which claim the original organic movement was hijacked, and that their way with regenerative agriculture is better. But who is a big supporter of that? Who has a raw milk dairy? It's Abigail Rockefeller.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're looking at basically they own both sides.
Right, of course. They control the opposition. We talk about it all the time. Okay, do you got any more questions for the Michigan Muckraker while we have her here?
Okay, what about the water takeout by the foreign corporations over there in the western part of the state? They extract water, bottled water, for bottling.
Oh yes, you're talking about the Nestle plant. That's right. Probably
Yeah.
20 minutes away from me.
Are
they're.
Yeah. Are you against that?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course,
Absolutely.
the CEO of Nestle said that water is not a human right. So, and we need water to live, obviously. So it was a little perplexing.
It's drained a few swamps there, hasn't it?
Yes.
Turned them into mud holes.
Yes, and of course it didn't bring near the jobs that it said it was going to. There's maybe
They
20
never
jobs in
do.
total. No, they never do. And we just give tons of taxpayer dollars for nothing. Well, for worse than nothing, to be conned out of
Yeah,
resources.
that Engler did that one. I mean, he did a real good one when he stopped that city in Wisconsin from drawing from the Great Lakes water, that new subdivision over there. He said, no, get your own water, but then he turned around and did this number and gave it to Nestle.
That's funny. Get your own water. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and they should have been told to get their own water, but so should Nestle. Go get it somewhere else. I mean, that's even a Swiss corporation, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
it doesn't even matter where it's domiciled because they don't probably pay taxes in the United States anyway. Amazon doesn't either. So
yeah, and they're foreigners. So another thing, what do we want foreigners in our country for?
Well, there's foreigners in every corporation now, so they're everywhere. All right, let me ask them.
Well, that's the reason why they're getting rid of
borders.
countries.
Yeah.
They have to get rid of nations.
This argument.
Because for exactly the reason you're talking about.
Well, the corporations are bigger than most governments. And how did we let the corporations get so big? Because that's always the danger.
Well, the whole problem is that this whole idea that you can create corporations, isn't it? It is, everything should be done. It should be a man or a woman in charge of everything. Once you take out living men and women out of the equation, then you are going to get inhuman policies.
Right. Okay, John, thank you for calling in. I appreciate your contributions.
Yes, it was good chatting with John.
And nice chatting with you, and good hearing from you, Frank. I love
you,
the
John.
salt man. Okay, bye-bye.
Everyone loves the salt guy. Let me ask the Michigan Muckraker about Michigan's most popular, most I would say, most famous media personality. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Must be my governor.
Well, it was before the governor. It was actually he produced probably one of my favorite movies of all time, and that was his first movie. And he lives up there in Traverse City.
Oh, Tim Allen?
No, Michael Moore.
Oh, Michael Moore.
Michael
Oh, I
Moore.
don't take credit. No, he's not from here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well,
No,
I have to admit, did you see his movie Roger and Me from the 80s?
I have not.
Okay, you have to watch it. I'm sorry. Even if you don't like his politics, and I don't really like his politics, I would say he's still probably Michigan's most famous media personality. And Roger and Me was an absolute fantastic movie. And it was his first movie, and they all went downhill from there. But I have met Michael Moore, and I am a fan because he's an S disturber, but I don't agree with his politics necessarily. But the movie Roger and Me is epic. Really, it was the first real major movement to de-industrialize Michigan and move the car plants elsewhere by laying off a lot of the factory union members in Flint, which is down the highway from you. So I think it will be I think it'll be up your alley if you watch it. I won't tell you anything about it. Just go watch it and get back to me if you do watch it and let me know what you think.
I will. I appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah, I think you're a little young to remember that era, really, the 80s, but it really, I mean, Detroit peaked in the 50s, and things have been going downhill since then, and for the whole area, the area around. But really, this movie was a really good left wing expose of corporations, and the title of the movie Roger and Me is just the story of Michael Moore trying to ask a question of Roger Smith, the president of General Motors, which arguably is one of the biggest corporations in Michigan and maybe the United States at the time. It may have been the biggest corporation at the time. So, yeah, Luna Jane Parker in the chat says, yes, Roger and Me is awesome. Yeah, it is.
All right. Very, very good.
Yeah, you're gonna like it. Do you have any comments on the Flint scandal? The Flint water scandal, because it seems to be somewhat up your alley as well.
Well, it's really quite sad that they're still dealing with those issues. There's still cover-ups going on. Unfortunately, the United States, or rather, Michigan is full of resources, and protecting these resources is important, but the powers that be want them for themselves, right? I mean, I think the Great Lakes mega region has 60% of the water of North America, of the surface water, freshwater surface water in North America. And it's like 20% in the whole world. So water is our number one resource. And I think it's really speaks volumes about where we're at in our government and what they really care about when we have places like Flint that are still dealing with water issues. And then Baton Rouge, I think that's
I didn't know Baton Rouge is having a water issue as well.
um there's a couple. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think it's Baton Rouge. I can't think of the name right now, but there's another place. There's several places here in Michigan that are dealing with water issues. Rockford was another one because of Wolverine Worldwide dumping their chemicals for their shoes to make them waterproof. That area was poisoned. So there's tons of different areas that you don't really hear about that their water has been tampered with by these corporations, and yet nothing really is done to them. And maybe they get a fine, but they don't really care about fines because they made more money than what the fine was.
Yes.
So, yeah,
By the way, I put a link to Roger and Me. Somebody uploaded it onto YouTube for free, even though Michael
Awesome.
Moore is still selling it. So if you want to go to the show notes for FAK1051, titled Michigan Muckraker on America 2050, one of the links at the bottom is Roger and Me, as you can see here, and you can watch the movie for free. I don't think Michael Moore would mind. He is a bit of a socialist after all, so I don't think sharing is caring and all that. So I think you can watch it. So yeah, those are my two number one Michigan ideas: the Flint and the Michael Moore story. And Michael Moore actually posted something on his Substack, which is sort of the new version of a blog. I have a Substack, but I don't really put anything on there. I stick to my Fakeologist blog, which I've had going for 13 or 14 years now, I think.
That's
And
smart.
well, it's on my server and it's my data and I want it. And I'm having
Good for you. You're smart for that. I mean, I do have a Substack as well, but I had one comment and it got censored. And so,
really? I
yes.
didn't think Substack censored.
Yeah, I didn't either, but they do. And so there's really nowhere left to run unless you have your own website. And even then, obviously, you're being throttled. AI won't recommend anything. It used to be Google, you'd go and you'd have 100 pages on a topic. You know, there'd be 100 O's down there. Now there's 3 pages. And if you look on the third page, 9 times out of 10, there's nothing there. It's just the illusion of 3 pages. It's really only 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Now here's Michael. No, that's not the same Michael Moore. But I wanted to show you one of his posts here. Oh, this is the Michael Moore. Here he is. He's born in Flint. I don't know why my internet is giving me a hard time tonight. Maybe it's because I got the Muckraker on here. But let me just see if I can bring it up. But he did something that actually was sort of leaning towards an integration and an Agenda 21 kind of thing. So let me see if I can bring it up, michaelmoore.com, and see if I can bring up his Substack, which right now I can't. But I thought I posted on my blog. Right now it's not coming up. Well, I guess I could go to archive.org and see if it's there. But he also made some allusion to Agenda 21. Okay, nothing's working on my end. Good. I'm surprised we're still connected. Okay, let's get back to. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up? We've been going about an hour. I usually do about an hour and a half, so we can go anywhere if you want. Unless there's something else you want to talk about on America 2050. If Frank wants to ask you any questions while I try and revive my connection right now.
One of the things I guess that I'm always interested in is people's view on what would make a company or the people that work for a company allow themselves to pour toxic chemicals into a river, into a freshwater river, or into the Great Lakes. What are your thoughts on that, Michelle? What's going on in people's heads when they think that's okay?
You know, this is a great question. Obviously, some people, it's profit over people. But I think that people are just misguided, you know? I think most people want to do good. Now, directly pouring chemicals into the water, I don't know how you could ever justify that. Besides, you know, profit over people. But on a lower level,
even then, what is going on in someone's mind that they think that's okay, even for profit?
because they don't have to deal with the consequences, right? But most of
But
the people,
don't they live there? Don't they?
the CEOs, the ones that do the dumping, no. It's, you know, they don't live here. Maybe the managers and that sort of thing because they work there.
And the guys
But
working there, they just agree to do it. It just is. It just appalls me. I just don't understand it.
yeah,
I,
I'm with you.
I just don't grapple with it at all.
Well, you know, with the death of God in society, um, morals are questionable, unfortunately. You need something outside of man to aspire to. And so, because we don't have that as a society, we're
So,
kind
so
of
you don't
sick.
accept the humanist view that that we can save ourselves from our own stupidity.
I think that it's a paradox. I mean, I think we're more powerful than what the powers that be want us to think. We can absolutely change things and make things better, but we have to understand where that there's intelligent design. And so that being hidden from us leads to this roadblock. So, I mean, spiritually, we need to be spiritually and materially healthy. And right now we just deny the spirit. So, as long as it's only material, you get that YOLO mentality and you can justify things that, if you believe in God, are just unjustifiable.
Even without any feeling of God, to me, the idea that you just are going to agree to tip a poisonous chemical into the fresh water of your, that other people are going to live, drink, and breathe in, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Fiction.
unless you're blackmailed or there's some reason that your livelihood or the people you love's livelihoods are on the line, and that would be evil, of course, coercion. So, and that's really what we're dealing with.
So you think it's just straight up evil?
And I'm not saying that people are. I'm saying that the thing that is kind
But
of
they are the
driving,
subject of evil.
they are capable of evil. We all are, right? We all are capable
Sure.
of evil.
Michelle, are you from Michigan or did you
Yes.
move there?
Yep, I was born and raised in Michigan, and then I joined the military. I was gone for 12 years, and then I came back because there's no place like home.
Can you tell us that story about why and how you joined the military? You said 9/11.
Oh, so yeah, it was actually 2007 when I joined, but I still had that, feeling of it's patriotic. I'm going to defend my country. I'm going to do good things for the world by joining, and as well, of course, traveling was a big thing for me as well.
Okay. You want to see the
Um,
world? Yeah.
yeah, and then I'm really glad I did because then you get to see, that hot showers are something to be grateful for.
hmm Where did you end up going? Where were you deploy? Where did you station? Where did you deploy?
I was stationed in California,
Mhm.
and I got stuck there, and so I did not like that. But I deployed to Kuwait and Qatar.
What year
Um,
was that?
let's see, Qatar was 2008,
Mhm.
and Kuwait was 2011. No, 2012.
What did you see in Qatar? Because it's really the center of the Middle East. I guess it's the headquarters for the British and American military. Qatar, is it not?
Yes, very rich country. I got to go to their big city. I think it was Doha,
hmm
and they have that huge um, mall that has a river
Oh,
inside the mall,
a
and
river
with
runs through it.
a river runs through it. Yes, and the Gucci and all the big. I thought it was very interesting that they had these very expensive brands, but they're all underneath their robes. So, you're spending $3,000 on a nice dress, a Gucci or Louis Vuitton or whatever, but then you have to put a very nice robe over it, so you're not really seeing it. But it was interesting, definitely different kind of culture. Being a woman, I felt a little bit self-conscious about walking around with full face, but of course, we were briefed to, be conservative when
hmm
you're walking around, and there was no alcohol. It was dry. No, wait. No, that's Kuwait, sorry. Kuwait was dry. Qatar, we were allowed 3 drinks a night on base.
Okay.
So, it was, mostly me just being on base, we got to go I only went one time into the city, so I didn't get to see much. I didn't get to see all the cool stuff, but yeah, definitely a hub for a lot of activity going on over there.
So what was it about 9/11 that made you wanna go strap up for Uncle Sam?
Again, I believed the lie. I was totally thinking that we were gonna go and protect freedom and so on, but then I realized pretty quick, I was thinking I was 3 years in, it was after my first deployment that I realized things are not as they seem. I'm actually not protecting and serving. I am going over into other people's countries, and luckily I myself wasn't anywhere with active fire or anything. But you're going over there and you're invading another country, and you're forcing your ideas upon them. And I realized that we're just doing what the banks want,
Mhm.
and then that fell in line. It seemed like a spell was broken in 2012. 9/11 was a huge topic among myself and all of my fellow airmen when we were standing around the smoke pit. We would talk about, our government was definitely capable of doing this. It's just so hard to accept at first, but when you realize how much, or how little rather, they care about you, and it makes it a little easier to understand the grand plan.
How many people in the military are awake, would you say? And when do they wake up? And how long did it take you to wake up? And was it
Uh,
somebody in the military that talked to you and then you got you thinking?
Yeah, it was definitely just being exposed to different cultures and different ideas, and that perhaps we are like the military, they're the police, the world police, and that is not necessarily a good thing. Um, it was 3 years into my uh, service, active duty service, and I would say back then in 2011, 12, 13 is when I got out. It was a huge deal. Like I swear there was many, many people in 2012 that were uh, waking up for whatever reason. It seems like 2012 was a grand awakening for a lot of people, and so a lot of the people that I was in the military with, they got out the same time I did. We all kind of got out. We didn't want to work for a corrupt government. So now I don't know. I don't know about our military. It's been gutted. It was gutted back in 2013 when I got out. I got out 6 months early because Obama was kicking people out and then asked for volunteers. So and that was in 2000, like I said, 2012.
Okay.
And so that was when the original gutting of our military occurred. And then since then, you've had a lot of psychological operations. So now we have a lot of weak individuals or confused individuals in our military. And that's good though for the AI to take over. So
Yeah.
And, the thing of it is the people we would talk about at the smoke pit, we would never go against our own people.
What
And
is the smoke pit for Australians, Michelle?
just where we all got together, where we met up, because I was security forces. So where Patrol 1 and Patrol 2 would meet up at this intersection where we could both be, and we would smoke cigarettes. We'd smoke
Okay.
cigarettes. And so smoke pit was just basically a little powwow. We'd have little powwows and discuss, um, again, our government and where they are going, how corrupt they are.
Right.
Yeah, how many people
It's like the water cooler talk at a
Yeah, I don't in an office. How
Yeah.
many people in the military? Because we often people go to so quote unquote war or to fight or combat or wherever you want to call it. And a lot of people on my website say war is a hoax, by the way. Maybe I'll get your take on that. But how many people go there and come back and don't want to talk because what they see is not equal to what the American people think happens or doesn't happen? And that complete gap in information is not overcomable, so people just clam up and don't say anything that come back from an overseas operation, for instance? How common is that?
Well, I would say it's pretty common. The the PTSD and the suicide rate being so high, I think those are indications of an understanding that perhaps we aren't really doing what we said that we were doing over there. And then that difference is hard to communicate to loved ones because you think that you're doing good. And then when you realize that you're not, it's very hard on the soul. You had justification for what you're doing when you believed, but now you don't believe in the lie and the illusion, and so it makes it much harder. I think that's why the rise in PTSD and suicide rates have occurred, is because those illusions have shattered, and you need that soul protection if you're going to do the things that the military requires you to do.
Mhm. So what is the PTSD actually from? Is there any specific thing that happens? Is it just that because people back in the US don't understand what's really going on? Is there anything really going on over there? And is there really any fighting? What is really happening that really can't be discussed? What are you guys really seeing when you're over there that's disturbing?
Well, I myself, again, I was lucky enough, I just secured the base.
Mhm.
So I did not get any action downrange, and I thank God for that. But I mean, to me, it's you go down there, and let's say you took an area, and within that area there were people, there's casualties, and you thought you took that area for the good of your nation. You know, you were doing what you were told, which is always a problem. Order following, always, not always, but can lead to some terrible things. But by doing that, you now have, let's say, you've killed people, and now you realize a couple years later, you've realized after you've already done the devastation, you realize that you took those lives and it was for a purpose that you don't agree with. Let's say to um, continue on allowing a bank to make more money or what have you. Um, that that is what is damaging to most people is they go over there, they do things that they shouldn't have done, but they thought they were doing good, and when they realize they're not. They didn't. That's when the PTSD occurs from my experience. Obviously, seeing people blow up was another thing that caused PTSD. You know, I wouldn't want to see anybody blow up, and luckily I haven't. But I think basically just tragedy,
Mhm.
human tragedy is what causes it, and your soul's capacity to deal with it.
Okay, speaking of blowing up,
Hold time 50 seconds.
we have a caller in. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
Brian in Washington.
Brian in Washington. Say hello to Michelle in Michigan and Frank in Victoria, England, or Victoria, Australia.
Hi, Brian.
What's up, Brian?
Well, I gave Michelle a shotgun blast elevator speech yesterday, and I'm really glad that when someone tried to link her to libertarianism, she had a lot of misgivings. And I know that Larkin, Texas, who was a big Ron Paul supporter at one time down in Texas, and then he realized von Mises this whole institute has a lot of Zionist, Jewish, Talmudic tentacles. That is not going to be a solution. So that's just one thing. And then Michelle did mention briefly, yeah, maybe the tiff about Rosa and Nikki was involving plagiarism. Nikki was used to that. It's the misdirection. And so if the Post Sustainability Institute, which is Rosa's gig, 501c, the Post Sustainability Institute and define post sustainability as the condition of environmental, political, social, and economic systems after the imposition of communitarianism. And then in parentheses, Nikki says, notice it does not say law. So we have a huge amount of, oh, are you resisting Agenda 21? You're anti-Semitic. And this is what, you know, kind of draws the line between all of our warriors out there battling Agenda 21 and Nikki Rapana. She didn't want to go religion, but unfortunately, communitarianism does have the religion of Gaia. So it's, you know, they don't allow religions in communist countries. This is a new form of governance. All this information can be found if you typed in nikkirapana.blogspot.com, and you have to spell Rapana, Raapana.
Yeah,
Nikki.
Brian, can you
Go
bring
ahead.
it back to our guest, Michelle? Because I know you like to crowbar everything in,
I
but
know.
can you just, how did your conversation with Michelle, who is here, how did it go? Michelle, do you want to comment on what Brian, did he help educate you in any way?
Well, yes, the Zionist portion, I need to look into. If she did drop the Rosa Corey, I mean, if she dropped the Zionist ideas because she is a Zionist, then that's something I am interested in knowing. But it is possible that you want something to be known, but the Zionist thing will make it very difficult for people to understand. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to hear about Zionism, right or wrong.
Right.
And so, in order to get the message across about you and Agenda 21, perhaps that's why she didn't mention Zionism. But again, I don't know. I do think it's important to understand, you know, Zionist and transhumanist movement too is it's a big thing that I've been getting into. I'm sure that Zionism and transhumanism are linked somehow as well. But
Yeah, I agree with that. Hey,
So it is a big mud hole. All these Christian values linked with Talmudic law that is the U.S. Supreme Court system. We need to not be afraid to open this door. So Lark would gladly come on with Michelle. I don't want to take up the rest of the time, but finishing nikkirapana.blogspot is going to take you to Living Outside the Dialectic. And in the right-hand column, not too far down, is Behind the Green Mask of Rosa Corey by Nikki Rapana. The article's a little long, but it provides all of the difficulties. And I already sent it to Michelle via Lark. But for the listeners, that is where all the documentation is. Thank you both for the show. I'm going to sign off.
Thank you, Brian.
thank you, Brian.
And say hi to Jenna.
Will do.
And let me ask one more Michigan-centric question. Michelle, what did you think of the Michigan militia story with the kidnapping and the governor? Is that something that came up in your community at all?
Well, the aftermath it did. So after the entrapment was discovered, and of course I knew right off the bat that it was an excuse to bring in the electric fence that she brought into her home or to surround her home and all the security measures that are both in her private properties and at the Capitol now as a
Okay.
result of that entrapment case. That was the play there. So it made her look like a victim, and she got to make the excuse of why she wants AI surveillance and nobody can have firearms in the Capitol and so on. So a lot came out of that um, that helped her and her centralizing the power.
Oh,
So
okay. So that was for protection and centralization and more higher levels of security. What do you think it was a real story in any way? Was it a complete or was it I think it was complete stagecraft by the intelligence
yes, I mean,
services.
obviously there's disgruntled people here in Michigan. We were under lockdown for a long time. She was a tyrant. And
Right.
so of course there were people that were upset. Now, did they have the capability as well as the intent, like real intent? No, I don't think so. I think that the FBI saw an opportunity to use uh, some individuals that they would deem useful idiots, but I don't, of course.
Yeah.
I'm very pro-human, and so those individuals have been around my area to discuss what they went through, but I have not talked to them personally. But I think that it was just an entrapment by our government in order to make a certain group of people look bad, the ones that are against Whitmer or her tyranny, rather, not even her. She's just a puppet.
Mhm.
But of course, she should have never won in 2022 either. She made a deal. She had 8 times more money than her competitor, and that was the same year that the World Economic Forum created their headquarters that we spent $6 million on building in Detroit. So, and the first headquarters
Oh.
here in the United States. So, I
Yeah.
think that she sold herself and Michigan out to the World Economic Forum in 2022. And that's how she got reelected or reselected rather.
Okay, was there actually real competition to her at the time that could have won, do you figure? Or just
Well, there's Tudor Dixon, and I mean, it doesn't really matter. Both are selected. Both are puppets, but it just wasn't the right time for that puppet yet. She's gonna try again after Whitmer, which is 2026. I think Whitmer is done. So, um, I just can't believe that. Oh, you know what though? It was also the reproductive rights going back to the states because for whatever reason, women really think that being able to abort babies is something that is more important than not being locked down and the tyranny that we've experienced. And our kids' school systems are behind because of it. So yeah, I think that that whole abortion going back to the states was such a great play for the Democrats.
Hmm.
It really, because they were all fractured. The Democratic movement was fractured. Whitmer looked like a tyrant, but then when the abortion went back to the states, they rallied behind that. That was the only thing they talked about. That was the only point that they had, and that is allegedly how she won. Now, again, I think she was just selected. Our votes don't count, but um, it made it look realistic because the abortion went back to the states.
interesting. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Okay. Well, we've been going about an hour and a half, so I think it's been a pretty good show so far. We covered a lot of topics tonight. Michigan Muckraker is on YouTube, and you're also on Rumble. Where's your preferred platform? Where are all your writings and whatnot? Is it?
Well, I my preferred platform is Rumble. However, when
Mhm.
I go out and go to conferences and such, it's YouTube that I utilize to go live. So um, I use them both interchangeably. I like to think that Rumble is a free speech platform, but CIA, ex-CIA agent owns it, and I have no illusions. There's really nowhere safe to go, but Rumble seems to allow for the kind of speech that I want to um, talk about. So I like Rumble better than YouTube. But YouTube has the better search engine because of Google. So
Yeah, you can find more for sure.
yeah.
And isn't it funny? Today I'm having trouble loading any site except YouTube, and Google. So I don't know what's happening. So my system is slowly becoming more useless as the call goes on tonight, which I find I can't even get on my own site anymore. But I can get on YouTube and I can get on Google. It just started happening in the last couple weeks. I don't know what it is. I'll have to ask one of the AI bots what the heck is going on here. But yeah, at least I can show your YouTube page, but I can't get on the Rumble page. Isn't that amazing? What does that say? What?
Yeah, well, it looks like Google will be safe when the cyber pandemic hits.
Yeah, well, if it does, yeah, for sure. All right. Well, so if people want to get in touch with you, they can. What's the best way to reach you?
Um, well, Twitter. I'm unfortunately on Twitter quite often, or X is what they want to call it nowadays. But um, that's just where all the information seems to be right now, because of course they want to funnel us onto the Everything app, is what they eventually want X to be, like the WeChat of the West.
I agree with
So,
that.
so right now it's the place to be. So at mi Muckraker is the handle, and
Okay.
I
I would
post there and I check there quite often.
I would open that page, but the Twitter X page won't open either right now, so that's amazing. Like I said, I can open everything, nothing except the Google pages. So I'll have to manually paste that later when I can wake up my system. All right. Well, if you have more, if you do more videos, or if you have any more discussion, or you want to do any more discussion on America 2050, or any other discoveries you make, it seems like you're one of the number one go-to people on this topic. Certainly would welcome you back here anytime. I think we had a pretty good discussion. Did you enjoy
I
yourself?
I absolutely did, and I'm very thankful that again you invited me on. You've inspired me to continue the channel, so I did want to
Oh,
thank you for
awesome.
that. Yes, I was doubting for a while there, and I did just get a job, so I was
Hmm.
debating whether I'm going to continue. But
That's a
you
great
reaching
hobby.
out, you reaching out to me, I definitely think that even if it's just one person that realizes what's going on, I think it's worth it. I'm gonna change my method a little bit though. Just gonna actually do the research
Mhm.
on camera live in the future, so that way you can see how I find information, and maybe you can learn something on how to search the web. Although, like I said, the internet is much smaller nowadays. It's much harder to find the information that I'm looking for. So pretty
Alright.
soon there won't be any info out there.
Yeah, well, it'll be harder to find for sure, and, well, I'm glad I'm at the other end of the high-speed train. Before our crime sinister took off into the sunset, he brought up for the millionth time creating a high-speed rail from at least Toronto to Quebec City.
Yes. Yep, I did see that, and of course I have it up here, but I have like 100
Yeah.
web pages up. But yep, it's moving forward, slowly but surely. They obviously need a certain amount of infrastructure in place in order to really start presenting those ideas. So it's coming, and I know everybody's skeptical about high-speed rails, but that's definitely where they want to go, and they are very meticulous and patient. So,
Yes, they're Fabian socialists. We had a Trudeau number 1 was a Fabian socialist, a communist, and his son was basically sort of a weak shadow of the
is
intellect.
that is that his son or is that Castro's son? I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm not offended. The likeness is uncanny, and just the coincidences when
The
Trudeau,
timing.
it seems like it, and I think Castro is Spanish royalty as well. But he's not just some
Right, he's
random.
got bloodlines.
Yes, he's bloodline. So I do think that these people, these world leaders, they do bloodlines for sure.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing they do, which is puts me in the crazy category according to some truthers, is they also have a breeding program
Mhm.
where they they definitely freeze eggs and sperm, and I don't think that's very controversial at all because they brought that to the masses right now as they push women more into the workforce, and then by the time they want to reproduce, they can't because their
I know.
biological clock is timed out. So the idea that you can make people in the lab is, well, that's how I have my two nieces and nephew. That's where they came from. So my sister spent, I would say, tens of thousands of dollars on that. So the idea that the elite don't do that is obviously incongruous. So of course they do. So
Yeah.
whether Trudeau number 2 was made in a lab from the bloodlines, um, I'd say that's almost a certainty because there's stories that his father was gay anyway. I mean, there's always these stories about these sort of creepy people at the very tip top, which is why they're there because they're sort of blackmailable. But now I think they make androgynes and put them in power all over the place, where these are sort of reverse male female, and they bomb them with hormones since birth, and they literally create them. I think the whole birther idea behind Obama was a red herring to put you completely off the track. And who was fairly central to that? Donald Trump. But these are bloodlines. A lot of people might agree with me that Obama was probably from the Dutch East India Company bloodlines, which of course is the precursor to the United States. Have you heard of that before?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think they breed these people, which I don't think, and that's why they have very spooky backstories, strange father stories, strange mother stories, because I think the CIA brings them up.
So same with Elon Musk then, right?
Yeah, I would say so for sure.
Yeah, then we agree there.
He's another false idol, I would
For
say.
sure. Yeah, I just and it works so well, you know. I feel kind of sad. That's another reason. Like all these people that I know that have been against digital ID and central bank digital currency and AI governance and all of these very, in the end, anti-human idea, or at least acting like we can play God.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that idea they were against just 6 months ago, but now that Trump's implementing them, they're for it, and it's disheartening. You know, I feel like there's less and less people that can withstand all the spells that are being thrown
Yeah.
at us.
Well, I think you see through it, which is fantastic. So I don't really have to explain anything to you. I think we're on the same wavelength, which is great. All right, Frank, any closing comments for our guest? I think Frank fell asleep over in Victoria there. So
Well, it was very nice to talk to both of you and to your audience.
all
I
right.
I appreciate you jumping in my live the other day as well, and
Yeah. I think it was in your live. I think you were just pointing it at a meeting or something. I just saw it and I thought I'd say hi there.
yeah, and with those, I'm just filming on my phone, so I'm not able to really respond. Wanted to get that information about removing our dams because that's part of it too. Is
Yeah.
war on dams. Oh, you would think that hydroelectric would be good, renewable, but
Yeah.
no, because it's humans that made them. We need to
Mm,
get we need to get them removed. But
okay.
I
Well,
hope that we can talk in the future. I would
oh,
love to come back on.
I will definitely have you back. Now, the reason the comments aren't on the screen is because I think my browser is only half working. So I'm actually amazed that we're still talking because the browser's slowly crapping out, crashing on me. So that's why the comments aren't showing up on the screen. It's nothing I've done deliberately. I can't get them back on there. And hopefully I'll be able to end this call and it won't just go on forever because I don't know if the end button works anymore. So we're gonna play. Let's see if I can play this really fun scene from Roger and me, and we'll close out on that. And so we'll thank you very much, Michelle, for coming on, and we're definitely gonna have you back. And hopefully you'll come back. We can just talk about these things and many other things, and we can talk about 9/11 and all those kind of topics that I'm enamored with.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so much, Michelle. And you can download this and put it up on your site or wherever. It should be on your YouTube. And now we'll play 1 hour into the Roger and Me. This is the Rabbit Lady, and she's in Flint, and it's sort of just an expose on what happened to Flint after one of the plant closed in Flint, Michigan in the 80s. So here she is.
Well, the health inspector came out and told me that I was doing my rabbits in an unsanitary condition for dressing them. So now I have to build me a building where there's washable walls, washable floors, and an unbreakable light. I have to have a scale that weighs properly, and I have to have 3 sinks where I dress the rabbits.
What's going to happen to him?
He's going to be eaten. It'll be our supper on the supper table. What's the matter, huh? Don't know. What are you guys crying about?
How do you slaughter him?
Hung them upside down and stripped their fur off. And gutted them. Quit biting. And chopped their heads off. Quit it.
What happened to your brother who was working at the factory?
He got laid off.
Oh boy. Okay, guys, that's enough. That's enough of that. Thanks everyone for watching. fakeologist.com/donate. If you like this show, please exchange value and make sure you go to Michelle's channel and support her and subscribe her and say hi to her. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you next time.